Today is Thursday, November 10th, and you should be reading Ezekiel 40 through 42 and John 14. And man, reading these passages in Ezekiel are like super boring and kind of hard to, what's the purpose of this? I mean, Ezekiel's just describing what the new temple is going to look like when they rebuild. And I mean, do we need to know the exact measurements of everything? I don't know how helpful that is. But there is a point in these chapters, I think, that we sometimes miss. It's the hope. The Israelites have been exiled for 25 years. The temple's been gone for 14. It says so in the beginning of this passage. And God is promising to rebuild it. And that has to bring hope, because the promise to rebuild also means the promise of restoration for the Israelites. Because if they're still in exile over there, how can they rebuild the temple in Jerusalem? So that means that God is promising to bring them out of captivity and out of exile and bring them back to their cities and their home, and so they can rebuild. God says, I am still with you and I still love you, and so we're going to rebuild this temple. Now that you've learned your lesson, now that you've learned that the temple is not what's important, but it's me, let's rebuild together. And then gives the exact measurements and says, this is how we're going to do it. Because God provides us a plan. Sometimes it's hard to see God's plan. Sometimes God is very clear with exactly what he wants. But God has a plan, and he's gonna share what we need to know with us so we can do that. And I mean, sometimes it's frustrating because God doesn't always share all of his plan. But we always know what we need. And the hope that these Israelites must have had when they saw this from Ezekiel, when they read that Ezekiel says God is building the temple, rebuilding the temple, they must have been like, yes, that means we get to go home. I mean, they must have been filled with it because they knew that God was coming back for them, that God had not forgotten them. And God was still with them in exile. And I think they finally figured that out. And they realized that God's going to be with them wherever they go. And so they got to be filled with this joy and this hope because they found that out. And for us, I think that's a great reminder that sometimes we feel alone, we feel without God, but he's always with us. And sometimes we need to find the little things that remind us of his presence. The nature and the people around us, all of those things can help remind us that God is there. Sometimes it's just you're reading the right Bible passage or the right verse at the right moment. Sometimes it's the little joy that you get when you walk outside and you find that it's sunny and warm and bright. Or if you walk outside and it's gorgeous and it's snowy, and it's just, there's these feelings that we get sometimes when we see certain things, or when certain people say things, or we read the right thing that brings us a little bit of joy and kind of reminds us that God is still around us. He's still nearby and close, and he cares for us, and he wants us to have that hope that he is there and he's gonna continue to be there no matter what. So I want you this week to be looking for the little things that can remind you of his presence nearby. And until next time, you are sent.